2013. We're coming to you live over Indiana Talks Network, which is an internet network that Gary Snyder set up from Marion, Indiana. And there are a bunch of different shows that are on it, but you can go to indianatalks.com. It's carried on Live 365, but if you go to indianatalks.com, there's a button on there you can hit donate, and that will enable indianatalks.com to buy some software and equipment so they can do things like have shows like us on, and also they can do some other stuff like call-in stuff. So indianatalks.com. You can also go to civildiscoursenow.com. We don't have anything to sell, no t-shirts or anything, but at some point we will. I don't know. We're here today with a distinguished panel. Our panel members,
well, except for me.
Well, except for you.
Yeah.
John Strinka is to my far left. Although I'm not on a lot of it. I mean, he's to my far.
A lot of issues are really kind of close that way.
John Strinka is chairman of the Indianapolis Socialist Party. He was a candidate last fall for Indiana State Representative. John, do you have a website?
The campaign website is still up, although we have not updated that since the election.
Okay.
But it is still up.
Okay, good.
StrinkerForStateRep.org.
Then to my left is Jeff Cox. To my left physically, but certainly not on any political issues of which I can think. Jeff is an Indianapolis attorney and also author of Rising Sun, Falling Skies, History of the United States Disastrous Java Sea Campaign. Did I get that right?
No, it was the Rising Sun, Falling Skies, the Disastrous Java Sea Campaign of World War II, which involved more than just the United States. It was also Britain, the Netherlands, and Australia.
Well, and Japan, too. Obviously.
Yeah, they play the bad guys.
Okay.
They were the bad guys.
Do you have a website?
Yeah, my blog would be No Boxes Allowed with dashes in between, .blogspot.com. Latest post on there is about the Aaron Swartz case.
And to my right is Maya Exton. Maya, you're a blogger and small business owner in Indianapolis. What's your blog, your website?
Creatingmaya.com.
And we were just discussing the Republican plans to...
I think Maya, we should say, you're a libertarian, right? You're pretty active in the Libertarian Party? Or
Yeah, I classify as a libertarian when it comes to parties.
Okay.
I'm technically, I guess, an anarcho-capitalist / voluntarist. So
Okay.
I was the event coordinator on Rupert's campaign this last run, and just really active with them.
I was a libertine in college. That's always a thing which I was proud. We were talking about, the last issue we were talking about was the Republican attempt to circumvent the democratic principles of our society.
Yeah,
so
no bias in that presentation, that question.
It's like watching the MSNBC.
No, it's not.
No, it's like watching current TV.
Current?
Well, we'll get to that. That's on our list.
That's current, yes.
But let's go from the thing about the Republican and Democratic Party to whatever happened to the fiscal cliff. Did I miss a thing in political geoeconomic metaphors?
As I recall, there was a deal at the very last minute.
Yeah, but it was like
$10 worth of tax increases for every dollar. Did I say that right? Yeah, for every dollar cut.
Wait a minute. There might have been a deal, but it was kind of like when I was a kid watching the Raiders and the Jets in the playoffs one time, and it was coming down to the last minute 20 seconds, and the Jets were driving, and it was a playoff game, and all of a sudden they switched to Heidi. And it wasn't even Shirley Temple's Heidi. It was a made-for-TV Heidi. And so on this, it was
it was a huge lead.
It was like...
The Jets had a huge lead.
The Raiders did. We've got a fiscal cliff looming. This is a crisis for all society. And then, oh, wow, Hillary's on before Congress. This is really kind of exciting TV.
No, I think it
just went away.
It's more like, it's like we've run over the fiscal cliff, but it's like Wile E. Coyote. He's still running in midair off the cliff. He doesn't realize that he's about to fall,
Yeah, but there's nothing, I didn't see, to follow up this crisis, headline, deal is made to avert crisis. It was just like something else happened.
Well, name the last time we had a budget.
Yeah, we haven't had a budget under Obama.
No, technically our last technical budget was 1997, but we passed a semblance of a budget April 29th of 2008. So it's been almost 5 years since we've had an actual budget, and we're talking about a fiscal cliff.
Oh, wait a minute. So,
like you said, we're Wile E. Coyote. We're already off the cliff. We just haven't
super genius.
So we are functioning a lot like a college freshman's checkbook.
Yes.
Yes. I love that analogy.
Well, here's
With a credit card.
No. Oh, okay, that shows my age.
here's the thing. I really
Oh,
want to dissent a bit, and I actually, for a socialist, I really like Paul Krugman a lot because he's very capitalist, but yeah, he makes a lot of sense. But I think one of the things that frustrates me with the fiscal
Yeah, but wait a second. Go back to your Paul Krugman comment.
Yeah,
No, just to clarify what
Jeff
you
and
mean by
I are getting physically
But to
sick.
clarify,
because you made a statement and relied upon an assumption that the audience would understand what your reference was.
well, I mean,
Paul
Paul Krugman
He's
has been
basically
a
a
vocal critic of
Economist.
austerity policy. He's a Nobel Prize winning.
On a totally different issue.
Well, yeah, he won the Nobel
Wait a
Prize.
minute.
But
One at a
he
time,
did
one at
win
a
a
time.
Nobel Prize in economics.
I
So
thought he won the
he-
Nobel Prize for stupidity.
No.
They
He
don't
did-
give
he
Nobel Prizes for that,
Well,
but they
he
do.
did it.
One,
I think that really is a little short of civic. Or civil. I think
It's Paul
wait,
Krugman.
wait.
Well, I think Paul Krugman. I
One
don't
at a
know.
time.
Can you get a professorship at Princeton? I think the man has some credentials, and I think reading his columns that the man talks sense. The only point I was making is that although I'm a socialist, and Paul Krugman is most emphatically a capitalist. He talks about free markets, and he talks about the rules that are necessary to make free markets work, and so forth. So there's no mistaking him for a socialist. But the point is, he does talk sense. And what I want to say about the fiscal cliff discussion is essentially it's a rhetorical device, to distract people. Now, truly, we're going to have issues with the spending, but the main thing that we're refusing to look at is to rationally look at what our society needs to spend to ensure, a peaceful domestic order. Okay, and what's happening now? The whole point with the deficit is being used as a diversion to try and justify cuts in vitally necessary social programs
Like
without.
PBS.
PBS
PBS
is
a very minor.
There's a-
It's minor. It's totally.
But if you
neat.
can't-
it's very minor.
Cut half of the defense
But the
budget.
point
No.
the point by and large is when we're talking about entitlements, we're talking about things like Social Security, we're talking about things like Medicare and Medicaid, and we're talking about things which form a substantial support for a substantial basis of our population.
Yeah, but-
If we cut those things, we are going to be hurting a lot of people. What we need to do is have a rational decision about what kind of society the United States needs to be and how much we need to do that. Now, from a socialist perspective, I find that there are enormous cuts to be made in the defense budget.
Let's pause just a second. Can you explain from your perspective, as a member of the Socialist Party, what socialism is? If you were to define socialism for someone.
Sure. The socialism is basically democratic system where the people themselves are in control of the important aspects of their lives. So what that means essentially is that all decisions are made democratically, non-violently, okay? It means that production is for use, not profit, and the best way to do that is to have the workers control their workplaces and to have the residents control their neighborhoods.
But doesn't government
Direct
own
democracy.
the banking industry? Government own
Don't
the
hit
oil
the table
industry?
like that.
Sorry.
It's the other way around.
Government
I believe the oil industry and the banking industry in particular own the government.
Well,
The way it is right now.
Under socialism. That's the idea, is that the government owns the means of production in exchange.
Government ownership is one way of doing it. Now,
But
in
you
a,
were-
com-
you were
in, a
talking-
com- in a complex society, all right, you need governmental institutions to make everything run. So, as a step, yes, socialists would call for a complete nationalization of the banking industry, all primary industries, in fact, the simple Marxist principle, the means of production. Now, it doesn't mean if some guy wants to own a restaurant or hair salon or something, you can do that, okay? We're not going to collectivize everything. But the means of production, yes, need to be nationalized, and ideally, as we switch to a more local forms of government, the actual operating units of these large institutions should be operated and guided by the workers and residents themselves, democratically.
Maya?
But to clarify, you were talking about state-sponsored socialism, because there
No,
are
no,
many kinds of different socialists, because I have many friends that are anarcho-socialists do not believe in government means of enforcing socialism.
No,
Because to enforce your rules and your whims and everything that goes along with socialism, you do have to break the non-aggression principle and use force to enforce your rules and your will on other people that may not be socialists. So you are talking about state-sponsored socialism, which means it has a government institution that has a monopoly on force.
And could I just? I don't mean to interrupt. just so I can clarify. When you're talking about forcing and coercing, you're talking about a definition of a sovereign authority, essentially. In other words, a definition of government. Correct me if I'm wrong. Would be a definition of government as a sovereign authority as being that institution in a society recognized as having the ultimate right and monopoly to use force to enforce its decisions.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'm not talking about state socialism. I'm talking about socialism basically as a whole cultural system. Now, in order to put in a socialist order, yes, that would necessitate the use of the state, because there's nothing else available that has the countervailing power to contest, the predominant, cultural economic institutions of the day, the corporations, okay? Now, in terms of coerced, well, it's not going to be coerced because it's going to be democratically decided. You bring up a good point, but the thing is this, in a complex, highly technological society, all right, although I have the highest regard for personal liberty, and part of the socialist tenet is really to have a system where each individual flourishes, to the extent of his potential, okay? But the thing is, in order to all get along, there needs to be some kind of structure. I mean, the point is, we're a social species, we need rules to govern our interactions.
Wait a
They
second.
need to be democratic rules,
Well,
okay?
democratic,
And they
so,
don't necessarily...
that's the simple adage of two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner. The democracy still has to use violence. It's mob rule. You have to use violence to enforce the will of the majority. That's a basic fact, and to say, you have to have a structure or a government is a fallacy. That's a logical fallacy.
Any government has to use the threat of violence to enforce law.
Right.
Whether the government is democracy, a republic, or Marxist, socialist, monarchy, any government has to use the threat of violence on the social contract.
I need to interrupt here. I need to interrupt to say that this is Civil Discourse Now. You are listening to us on...
used to be civil discourse.
We're still being civil, but give it a while, but...
I haven't called anybody any names yet. Nobody has here on here, Paul, except okay, never mind. I won't even tell you what I was thinking. But we are coming to you over Indiana Talks. That is a network on the internet. IndianaTalks.com. And we're also at civildiscoursenow.com, and you can watch us on Ustream. There are all these different ways of watching or listening to this show. The IndianaTalks.com website, if you go there, there's a button on there you can hit to donate funds. The money that you donate to IndianaTalks.com does not go for the purchase of my Lamborghini. It goes instead...
He doesn't even have a Lamborghini.
That's a lie. You're a liar. I have a brand new Lamborghini. It was a Matchbox. I stole that. I'm sorry, Gary Snyder gave me that joke. But the button for donate goes to the purchase of software and equipment for IndianaTalks.com to put things on the internet, and so that's a worthwhile cause and puts us on the air too. Our guest today, this is January 26, 2013, are John Strinka, chairman of the Indianapolis Socialist Party, Maya Axton, who's a blogger and a small business owner, and Jeff Cox, who's an attorney and author of Rising Sun, Falling Skies, the history...
The disastrous Java C campaign of World War II.
Yeah, go ahead. So we were just talking about distinctions between state-run capitalism and democratic principles and the necessity for sovereign authority.
Love to get back to that. Maya, I want to thank you for your comments.
Okay, wait a second. We need to take a break. I'm
Okay.
sorry. So, yeah, and so
What
we'll
did we
be
just
right
do?
back.
Are we going to move to the next time? Are we up there?